At the time, I was renting an apartment on the 8th floor of an old building. It was around 2 a.m. when I got off my night shift and headed home. I stepped into the elevator and pressed 8. The elevator creaked and slowly climbed. Then, at the 4th floor, it struck to a stop. Ding! The door slid open. The 4th floor was under heavy renovation. The hallway's lights was completely off. Right in front of me was nothing but solid darkness. No one stepped in. I reached out and pressed the close button. The door slowly came together, almost shut. Just a narrow gap left. Ding! They sprang back open. I clicked my tongue. Oh, elevator. Probably a glitch or some debris stuck in the sensor groove. I pressed close again. The door pushed shut. Then ding! Open again. Completely empty. Not a single sound from the dark hallway. I figured a small piece of rubble from a renovation was jamming the door sensor outside. I decided to step out and kick it away. I moved right up to the edge of the doors, where the dim yellow lights from the elevator spilled out into the dark corridor. And then I froze. Cashed clearly onto the dusty concrete floor. Just outside the elevator was a shadow of a man. He was fresh flat against the wall, hiding in the blind spot just to the side of the elevator doors. And in his hand, he was gripping a sharp metal bar. He was completely still, completely silent. And he has one finger stretched out, holding down the hallway call button, keeping the doors from closing. He was waiting for me to step out. My legs went weak. I backed up immediately, pressing myself into the corner of the elevator. I understood exactly what was happening now. The elevator has a security camera. The dark renovation floor did not. He had no intention of stepping into the light. He was luring me out, into the dark, into the camera's blind spot, where no one could see anything. I jammed my finger onto the close button and held it down, not letting go. My whole body was shaking. The shadow on the floor shifted slightly. Maybe he realized the trap has failed. Maybe he decided it wasn't worth rushing into a lit, camera monitor elevator to find someone who was now fully alert. That hand let go of the button. Clunk. The door sealed shut. The elevator slowly moved upward. My shirt was soaked through. My stomach is not the whole weight up. The second the doors opened on the 8th floor, I ran. I double-locked my apartment door and called out to security immediately. 5 minutes later, 3 guards with flashlights and batons went up to the 4th floor, but they found out the hallways was empty. That same night, I went down to the security room and asked to see the building camera footage. The basement parking garage camera caught him leaving. A man in a dark hoodie pushed open the stairwell door, walked calmly through the vehicle entrance, and disappeared into the night. The building reported the incident and asked an extra security guard at the parking garage entrance starting the same week. I got lucky that night. Lucky that I didn't get curious. Lucky that I didn't take one extra step forward. This story had no ghost in it, but standing in that elevator, staring at that shadow on the floor and the metal bar in his hand. That was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. Because if it hadn't been me at night, if it had been a young woman coming home alone from a late night shift instead, I'm not sure she would have walked away safely. In 2022, right after the pandemic settled down, I finally got hired as a warehouse worker at a large textile factory. The finished goods warehouse was massive, thousands of square meters, ceilings so high you could barely see them. Because the space was so big, management has installed motion sensor LED lights across every aisle. Walk into an aisle, the lights click on, leave, and about 15 seconds later, they shut off automatically. On my very first night shift, around 1 a.m., I went out to the courtyard for a smoke break with older workers. The team leader looked me over, took a long drag of his cigarette, and asked what I thought was just typical new guy hazing. You are assigned to pack in section K, right? The last aisle. Down there on the night shift. Are you afraid of ghosts? I almost laughed. I was about to say something like, in this economy, being broke is scarier. But before I could open my mouth, the other guys went completely quiet and gathered closer. The team leader tapped his cigarette ash and lowered his voice. There was an unspoken rule in this factory. Every night shift worker had to know it. More than a decade ago, a terrible accident happened right in the section K. A female worker doing overtime has fallen asleep at a machine. Her long hair got caught in the equipment. By the time anyone could cut the power, it was already too late. After that, the factory removed all the machines and turned the area into a storage warehouse. But the strange events didn't stop. They were only just beginning. The team leader told me about Huang, a new worker from the previous year, assigned to pack boxes in the same corner of a section K. One night, around 3 a.m., the warehouse was completely silent. Huang was tapping a box when the lights in the aisle 12, the furthest one from his station, suddenly clicked on. He stopped and listened. No sounds of push cart, no footsteps, no tracking soles on the concrete floor. Complete silence. 15 seconds later, aisle 12 went dark. Then click. Aisle 11 lit up. 15 seconds. Dark again. Click. Aisles 10. One by one, the lights were turning on and off in a straight line, moving slowly toward Huang's workstation. And the whole time, not a single sound. That was the part that makes it so terrifying. A person walking makes noise, an animal makes noise. But whatever was triggering those motion sensors wasn't making any sounds at all. By the time the lights reached aisle 4, Huang has already dropped to the floor and crawled under his metal packing table. He lay completely still, holding his breath. His eyes was fixed on an 8 inches gap between the bottom shelf and the floor. If someone was walking by, he would see the shoes. Click. Aisle 1. Right next to his table, lit up. Huang clamped his hand over his mouth. No shoes in the gap. Nothing. But then, out of the darkness, something round and covered in tangled hair slowly rolled out from under the shelf. Tum, tum, tum. Slowly, steady, it rolled across the cold concrete floor and stopped right in the middle of the aisle. Under the white sensor light, the thing slowly rotated. It was a human head, pale and gray. Long matted hair tangled around its neck, and its eyes rolled back, completely wide. Turned and looked straight into the gap under the table, straight at Huang. He screamed and passed out on the spot. The next morning, he walked directly to HR and resigned. He was too shaken to even go back into the warehouse to collect his things. The team leader finished the story, patted my shoulder hard, and said, "Remember, if you're working in there and you see the sensor lights turning on one by one, moving toward you, do not look under the shelves. Just close your eyes, turn around and walk straight out." The brake sirens went off. The older workers stretched, stood up, and headed back to their zones. I stood there, arm covered in goosebumps under my uniform. My feet felt heavy as I walked back into the Section K alone. Standing in front of the packing table, I told myself it was just a story, just something they tell the new guys to mess with him. I picked up the roll of tape. Click. 15 meters away, the lights in aisle 12 flared on. I went completely still. The warehouse went dead silent. 15 seconds passed. Click. Aisles 11. Then, click. Aisle 10. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The shroud of light was moving, coming toward me. And the team leader's word was already ringing in my ear. Do not look under the shelves. Just close your eyes, turn around, and walk straight out. I dropped the tape. I turned and walked. Fast, but not running. Eyes locked straight ahead on the exit door at the far end of the warehouse. I kept my gaze up, staring forward, refusing to let my eyes drip down toward the floor or the dark gap under the shelf on either side of me. And as I walked, in that total silence, I'd heard it. Behind me. Tum, tum, tum. I didn't run. I was afraid that if I panicked, the sounds of my own footsteps would send me completely over the edge. I just grit my teeth, kept moving, pushed open the heavy iron doors, and walked out into the courtyard. My back was soaked through the cold sweat. That same morning, I told my manager my health wasn't holding up and asked to be moved to the day shift permanently. I stayed at that factory for another year before I finally quit. For that entire year, I followed that rule without exception. Once I was inside the warehouse, I kept my eye forward. I never went near the Section K alone, not once. Even now, years later at a completely different job, that habit never fully went away. Whenever I have to walk down an empty corridor with a motion sensor lights, in a parking garage, an office building, anywhere, I keep my head up and my eyes straight ahead. I never look down into the dark spaces at my feet. I just don't. My name is Vivian. The story I'm sharing today didn't happen to a stranger. It happened to my own family. A few years ago, my grandparents bought an old abandoned house in a poor rural village. I'll keep the exact location private. The place has been empty for years. Weeds has taken over the yard, and thick trees block out almost the sunlight. Before they closed the deal, the neighbors whispered all kinds of dark rumors about the property. But back then, the fear of not having a roof over their heads was much greater than any fear of any ghost. The price was very low, so my grandfather bought it anyway. The house has traditional L-shaped layout. The front section was the main living area with ancestral altar. A long hallway ran down the side, leading to the back door, the kitchen, and the shared space. Right next to the back door and the outdoor washing area sat an old well. It has a mossy roof, cheap brick walls, and a bucket hanging from a rotting rope. The first time I stood near it, a cold, heavy feeling seeped straight into my bones. My grandparents moved in together with my youngest uncle. He was 35, gentle, and still single. Because our family is very spiritual, my grandparents made a trip to a sacred mountain temple and brought back a mulberry wood bracelet for everyone in the house. The monks had blessed the beads to protect whoever wore them. According to my grandmother, in the first few weeks, she would hear wet footsteps slapping against the washing area late at night, followed by long, heavy sighs rising up from the direction of the well. It wasn't until she set up a proper Buddhist altar inside the house that the sounds finally stopped. Things took a bad turn during my summer visit. One afternoon, my uncle accidentally snapped his mulberry wood bracelets while doing chores. The beads scattered across the floor. He didn't think much of it. He was already running late for a friend's wedding in the next village, so he just got dressed and left. He came home after 1 a.m., and he had been drinking heavily, not wanting to wake my grandparents by rattling the heavy front gate. He came around the side and let himself in through the back door. The next morning, my grandmother went out to the back to start cooking. She stopped in her tracks. My uncle was lying unconscious on the cold dirt floor, His back was slumped against the mossy wall of the well. My grandfather rushed out and they carried him inside. At first, everyone assumed he had simply passed out from the alcohol. But when he finally came around, something was wrong. His eyes was empty and distant. He couldn't follow a single word anyone said. He just stared blankly and mumbled to himself like a small child. He wasn't the same person. The third night was when things reached a breaking point. My grandmother was walking up by the frantic noise of the chicken in the backyard. Thinking it was a thief, she grabbed a flashlight and slipped out the back door. The beam swept across the dog washing area. Then she saw my uncle was crouching in the shadow. In his hands was a raw chicken. He was eating it like a starving animal, completely unaware of anything around him. A low, guttural sound came from deep in his throat. My grandmother ran back inside. After that night, the house felt different. The air was thick and damp. A strange smell lingered in every room. Dog stands appeared along the walls of the washing area, and the whole space felt heavier, like something was pressing down on it. Terrified, my grandparents reached out to a highly respected local shaman and begged him to come. The moment he stepped through the front door, his expression darkened. The energy here is very heavy, he said quietly. There are many wandering spirits on this land, but the most troublesome one is the female spirit living at the bottom of that well. He told my family to prepare a few things: a bowl of red cinnabar ink mixed with a sharp vinegar and rice water, cold salt, raw rice, and a simple fruit offering. He would return exactly 3 a.m. to perform a cleansing ritual. That night, the tension in the house was almost unbearable. When the shaman arrived, he gathered my entire family into one corner of the living room. He dipped a brush into the red cinnabar mixture and painted a wide, unbroken circle around us on the floor. Then he looked at us and spoke very clearly. No one step outside the circle tonight. No matter what sounds you hear out there. No matter if you think you hear someone calling your name. Do not respond. Do not move. If you stepped out of the circle, I cannot protect you. We nodded. None of us says a word. Outside, the shaman scattered white rice and cold salt around the mouth of the well. He laid a piece of yellow silk on the ground and guided my uncle to sit cross-legged on it. He pressed a talisman written in red ink onto my uncle's forehead. Then he lit a thick bundle of incense and began drawing slow, deliberate patterns in the air above my uncle's head, chanting in a low, steady rhythm. The chanting grew louder. Then my uncle's body began to shake. His breathing changed. Red marks appeared across his skin, rising up as if something unseen was pulling at him. He struggled. He made sounds that didn't sound like him at all. My grandparents held each other and wept, but no one moved outside the circle. It went on nearly half an hour. Then, all at once, The cold air in the yard settled. My uncle let out a long breath and collapsed onto the mat, completely still. The shaman lowered his incense and exhaled slowly. He signaled that it was over. My family rushed out of the circle and carried my uncle to his room. As the shaman packed up his things, he spoke quietly. The woman in that well passed away more than 50 years ago. She was expecting a child, but her husband was a troubled, angry man. He even hit her. In a moment of deep despair, she chose to end her life right there at that well. Decades of grief and resentment turned her into something dark. The other night, your son came home late and alone, and he wasn't wearing his bracelet. His protection was gone, and then she found him. She wanted to keep him there with her. He paused for a moment. The only thing your family can do now is sell this house and move far away. My ritual tonight bought your son some time, but I don't have the power to fully undo what has already been done. My grandparents didn't hesitate. They sold the house at a significant loss and moved away quickly as they could. But for my uncle, it wasn't enough. Because of what had happened to him that night, he was never quite the same again. He spent his days in a gentle, childlike state, smiling softly, mumbling quietly, and needing to be looked after. 5 years after that summer, his health slowly faded, and he passed away peacefully. He was 40 years old. We never found out what happened to the people who eventually bought that house. My family never asked. Some things are better left alone.